What's up, everybody? Welcome to October 20th meetup with Robinson Smith and Megan Betker. We are super excited for these two to come present tonight. We're going to have a full house. We're going to have quite a few people tuning in to watch this one. And as always, we're very excited and appreciate all of you being on there. Oh, look at Shree's got her book out. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. So we're going to just jump right into it and get started right now. And I can share my screen. That one there. Steve, can you see that?
I got it, my man.
Cool, guys. There's tonight's meetup. You want to start, Steve?
Yeah, we have a really exciting pair of guest speakers tonight, and we're just going to start off a little bit about with who we are and ways to invest with refinanced funds from a more passive standpoint. So we'll get to Robinson and Megan, who are going to be a little bit more technical and explain the whole procedure. And Randy and I will just start open with a quick little bit of housekeeping, as well as what to do with the money once you have it. So welcome, everybody. We do encourage you to put on your cameras. We are very used to facilitating live in-person meetups. And so for me, for Randy, for Megan, and for Robinson, we always thrive off of what your energy is. So it really helps us to see your face and to see your engagement. And so we encourage you to join us, like, by video, whatever it is that you're doing, and be really active in the chat as well. So ask questions in there. We'll be monitoring that, and let us know where you're tuning in from, because I know that we have people from literally all across the country tuning in here tonight. So who are we? We are the REINVESTORS. Typically, if you've seen us, I'm wearing a REINVESTOR shirt underneath this. We're always branded. I know Mr. Mullen there is also rocking a REINVESTOR shirt. There we go. Go big to give big. We'll get into in just a short second, but we're active real estate investors here in Victoria, Vancouver Island, British Columbia. We're also educators, and we're also developers. A little bit more about the company. We have been at this for 4.5 years. And as a company, we actually just passed a milestone, in a sense of 4 years ago and 4 days was the first property we purchased as the REINVESTORS. And we believe that there's just a bigger mission in this world that we wanted to contribute back to our community and society, or locally here within Victoria, as well as people across the country. The four speakers here tonight, we all kind of share a very similar vision of helping people use debt equity. And so what we've been able to do over the last couple of years through working with joint venture partners and investors, as well as ourselves, is just use some of that debt equity. And we've purchased over $8 million in real estate in the last few years, ranging from single family condos, as well up into the small multi and large multi-family stuff and land developments. 100% of our properties outside of Randy's and my own personal portfolios have been purchased with OPM, the classic other people's money. And we talk about that pretty often. And then from an educational standpoint, it's someone that really just fuels our soul. We love educating people and pushing them and challenging them and encouraging them to become better at whatever it is that they want to become better at. And a lot of times in this world, in this space, it's in the investing space, and specifically within real estate. So we've held multiple workshops and have done large scale events as well. And then one of my favorite things is just our mission statement. This is something that we lean on almost weekly, if not daily, that we are on a mission to financially educate 1 million people and inspire them to invest in real estate so they can live a more fulfilled life. And a big way that we do that is through our business and our meetup, the flips that we do, the passive investments that we create. We give a lot of that back to Kids Sport Victoria. And so we just sponsored their golf tournament. Was that last month? I guess it was. And the golf tourney here, they helped put 93 kids through a season of sport, which is really incredible. And we're big advocates of them, and a charity and organization that we'll continue to support for, I think, the rest of our lives. And if you want to be involved with them as well, they have chapters all across the country. And so there's probably a kids sport in Ottawa or Fort St. John or wherever you're at. If sport is a passion of yours, as it is for us, that is something that you can get involved with as well. And the go backwards real quick. The Go Big to Give Big mission that we're on is just to inspire others to go bigger with their dreams and to give bigger with their profits. And that's a big fundamental of our businesses. And then a huge shout out to all of our investors. Sponsors. Investors too, but to our sponsors. One is our guest here tonight, Megan Betker from Century West Financial. And we really do work with some of the best professionals in the real estate investing space. RealFile is incredible as an accountant. They're based out of Toronto. The Prime Real Estate team is local here to Victoria, probably one of the most well-respected real estate teams here in Victoria. Sitka Law, I could say the exact same thing for them. If you're working on business stuff or in real estate, Sitka Law is definitely rated 1 or 2 in all of Victoria. And then Homeline, Green Mortgage Team Insurance, mortgage brokers, and Kyle Green, they specifically like to work with investors like us. And so they know how to get creative. They know the right types of lenders and the right types of deals and how to analyze it. And they work with you to create, all of these professionals do work with you to create a good and solid kind of fundamental road path for you to follow.
Cool. Well, look at that. Kyle Kerr's just jumping in now, one of our sponsors. Cool, guys. Well, thanks, Steve, for opening us up. For those that don't know, we're in the midst of an insanely big capital raise for a development project right now, and Steve has not slept in about 2 weeks, making sure everything goes smoothly and handling the stress that comes with it. So appreciate you, Steve, and thanks for getting through that and with very minor mistakes. That was good. So cool. How do you combine the Smith maneuver with real estate investing? And just quickly looking at some of the people here, give me a little wave or something like that if you've heard of the Smith maneuver before. How many of you have heard of the Smith maneuver? A few of you, about 50% or so. So awesome. Well, what we're going to do tonight, Steve, can you just make sure you're admitting the people now?
On it.
Thanks, buddy. So we're going to just combine what we do with real estate investing with the Smith maneuver and quickly walk you through things. So how do you leverage the equity in your home to gain passive income, tax write-off, as well as grow your wealth? Just sounds like an unrealistic thing that's possible, but that's what we're going to work on. And so one of the quotes that I found, it says, homeowners can deduct the interest paid on their home equity line of credit on their personal tax return. The reason is that the tax is deductible because the income tax rules stipulates that interest paid on money borrowed to purchase income producing investments can be deducted for your tax purpose. Now, Robinson's probably sitting there shaking his head going, that's not the right thing, but it's close. So at least get you guys thinking that if we borrow money against our principal residences to invest in income producing investments, then we can look at writing off that interest that we pay on the borrowed financing. So a lot of you are probably sitting there like, hey, I understand how to refinance my home, but how do I invest in high ROI real estate and also get the tax benefit from it? So what I'm going to quickly run you guys through is looking at real estate as an income producing investment. That's exactly what it said in that statement, was that if we pull the equity out and invest it into income producing investments, then we can write off the tax. So what are income producing investments? In real estate, there's really 2 sides. There's the passive side or the active side. The passive side being you go and just invest your money into a project or into somebody in a joint venture partnership or hard money lend. That's getting your money working for you, but you don't have to do much. Or there's the active side where you actually go out and buy your own rental property. You go out and buy a house with a suite, you do some renovations, you do some different stuff internally with yourself. So there's kind of 2 different sides here that we'll talk about. I'm going to mainly talk about the passive side right now because the active side is pretty simple. Pull the money out of your house, go buy an apartment building, go buy a house, go renovate something that's making you income on the other side. The passive side is something that I'm going to quickly just touch on. There's a ton of different ways to invest passively. I'm going to touch on 3 of the mainstream topics that we hear quite often about. That's private mortgage lending, passive joint ventures, or development. So starting with private mortgage lending. So this is usually on the lower risk side. which also equates to the lower ROI. So typically here, you'll see something between 6 and 12%. Normally you're in a first or second position on the title of the property. They're normally a little bit shorter term. So normally, 3 to 12 months. You get no upside of the renovation of the property or anything like that. And your biggest risk is basically just if somebody defaults on the property and you have to liquidate that property, do you take it over? Do you sell it? That kind of thing. So there's not a huge amount of risk for your money being lost unless something bad happened to the property. And that's why you're on title of the properties to secure you in it. Here's a little example. Random Joe needs $50,000 in renovation money for an investment property, and he wants to borrow the funds from somebody. So say Megan had the money and she wanted to lend it to me. We'd put it in a second position on the property. I would pay her 10% interest for 6 months while I'm doing the renovation. You can see that down here, the 50,000, 6 month, 10% annualized, probably paid monthly, and then I have an option to extend. That's a very normal example of doing some private lending. Typically the lending amounts will end anywhere from $25,000 up to $1 million, depending on the property and what position you're lending in on. But it's a very simple structure, very easy to do, and very secured. It's a very simple way for getting into investing. You just need to find the right people to lend the money to that you trust. The second thing here is passive joint venture partnerships. This is what Steve and I specialized in. We would go out and find properties, and then we bring in investors to invest in the property. Now your returns are a little bit higher because you're starting to get into a medium risk here. You're starting to put yourself actually in a profit position on the project instead of just a determined return. You actually are going to range a little bit depending on how that property does. So you can see here you get ownership on the title, so they're on the title. Medium to long term, usually you're looking about 3 to 8 months with these joint venture partnerships that we've done. But you also get the appreciation and the renovation upside of it. So that's how you can start seeing those higher returns, is that in Victoria here, statistically over a long period of time, the average return is between 6 and 8%. So you start seeing that appreciation as well as the pay down of the mortgage and the cash flow that comes in. Your biggest risk with joint ventures is actually the market timing and the partnerships. So making sure you found a good partner to work with. And then the market timing is just if you need to get your money out, if the market is doing a bit of an up and down, that's your only real risk, is that if you need your money while it's at the top and you're trying to pull it out, when it's down and you're trying to pull it out and you bought at the top, that's your only risk. So if you plan on holding the property for a little bit longer, which most people do in buy and hold, you can usually ride out those, 6 years of kind of that peak on either side to make sure you get your money back out. So it's a little bit less risky, but your risk is just timing the market. And then we have development, a little bit higher risk, but a lot higher ROI. So you'll see about 20% annualized returns. Usually they're secured by a limited partnership or an offering referendum. And what that does is it just secures your investment yourself. So you're not tied to the big liability of the project. You're just tied to the investment funds that you put into the project. Typically, they're about a medium term, so usually 2 to 4 years if it's just an average size development. The picture here is a 37-unit condo building, which I'll walk you through, but that's about a 2-year project. There's lots of upside with big margins. So in development, you see a lot of big swings. So you're actually doing the building itself, so you can actually see a lot more lift in it. If you can build it cheaper and sell it higher, you make a lot more lift inside of there. And your biggest risks are the regulatory process and the economy. So you can get slowed down in regulatory, or the economy can dip a little bit and you don't have those. It's not like a buy and hold where you can hold that property for another 4 years to get your money back. You have to start selling it as soon as it comes up. So there's a little bit more risk, but there's a lot higher returns here. So one of the things we just like to talk on quickly in development is defining the risk. What is the risk involved in development? So as you can see here on this little chart, the risk and ROI goes up this side on the tall axis, and the project timeline goes here on the right. So if you were to invest in something at the beginning of a project, you have quite a bit more risk, but usually you're going to get a better ROI on the project. Whereas if you're investing in something later on in the project, past the, as you can see here, the pre-development, there's some things there you have to go through: rezoning, permits, what the community wants to see. Once you get past that pre-development and you get into construction, there's less risk, but you're probably not going to make as much money on your investment because it's a little bit more secured now. And then as you keep going forward, you get less and less risk and less and less ROI, and the project tends to be completed sooner down here. And you can also see there's a bit of a different risk when you're looking at building something that's a spec, like a condo building or commercial lots, versus building something to serve. So a tenant-driven build where you're building something, you have a McDonald's tenant or a Starbucks tenant, you know who the guaranteed tenant is. A little bit less risk in there because you know who's going to be tenanting that building. You already have something in place. Here's an example of a development that I was just sharing about that Steve is raising capital for right now. It's a 37-unit building here in Victoria. It's got higher returns. We're in a great location. We've ran some conservative numbers. With development, the stuff that we do, we normally do about $100,000 minimum, and we do a 24-month term, but you can see it's a 24% annualized return. So a little bit higher returns, a little bit more risk, but also a very great opportunity to start turning your wealth a little bit quicker so that maybe you can take the profits from that and go buy an apartment building of sorts. So those are a few different ways that we can start looking at real estate. And if you are interested in this project, little plug, reach out to Steve, because I'm sure he would be happy to chat with you about getting you invested in this project. We got about 6-7 days left to get some money in. So if you are interested in investing in a development right now, you can reach out to him. But if you're interested in any sort of these projects, from joint venture partnerships to private lending to development, the thing we've found to be the hardest, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see y'all. The thing that we've found to be the hardest is that is that people can't find the deals, right? There's a lot of people that want to invest, but they're scared. They don't know who to trust. They don't know who's they don't know who to trust. They don't know who to invest with. They don't know who to believe in. There's a bunch of different things like that. So that is where we can help you. We have a very good network of people that are interested in sharing their products with people or helping you get invested. So after Robinson and Megan come on here and show you kind of the logistics of how do you take that money that you're going to be pulling out, Robinson's going to teach you how to do that. And then Megan's going to show you some diversification and what you can actually do once you start getting the money out and rolling. Steve and I's job is to show you the different product that you can actually invest in to start getting that money working for you along the way. So if you need to, feel free to reach out to us, and we can help push you in the right direction or show you some right people or make some stuff happen for you. Go back to sharing my screen here. So if you do reach out to us, just Steve at the REINVESTORS, Randy at the REINVESTORS, or info at the REINVESTORS, you can get in touch with us. Who's excited for tonight's speakers? I am jacked up. So one of the things is we used to give a huge round of applause and a welcome and a jump up and down and shout and scream. Can't do that right now. I can't unmute all you. It'd become an absolute mess. So what we like to do is just show our hands and wave our hands as a way of welcoming people to the call. So I would love to introduce Robinson Smith to start us off here. So Robinson, why don't you give everyone a little welcome to Robinson Smith. Look at that. How cool is that? That's probably the best greeting you've gotten in a long time. Can you unmute yourself there? There you
go. I do feel very special. Thank you, Randy. So, am I away now?
You're up, sir.
Okay. Well, firstly, thanks for having me present to you folks tonight. This is, I think, the second or third time I've presented to the REINVESTORS, and it's always a good time. Last time, I think there was about 80 people in the room, so quite a significant bump in attendance. And it's nice to see people from across the country here. So I realize this might be late for some of you, but good on you for sticking around. Just a bit of background. My father, Fraser, developed the Smith Manoeuvre back in the mid-'80s, and he put his private clients into the strategy for about 15 years until he retired from advising to write his book. That came out in 2002. He came out of retirement to start advising again in 2005, and I joined him in 2006. And so I was an advisor for about 12 years, sold my advisory to a colleague so that I could get the word out of the Smith Manoeuvre to all Canadians, coast to coast. You know, as an advisor, I was educating Canadians one at a time across the desk. So I wanted to pull my bullhorn out, and so I sold my business, wrote my own book on the strategy, There it is. It's got my name on the bottom to prove it. And so now I'm just getting the word out. I'm doing a lot of podcasts. Of course, Randy and Steve, yours is my favorite. All these interviews I do. Enjoy seeing you guys. So let's just dive into it. I'm going to share my screen here. And of course, it is. There we go. So, the Smith Maneuver. Make your real estate investments work harder for you. I'm going to lead off, do the first 15 slides or so, and then I'm going to hand it over to Megan. Megan Betker is a Smith Maneuver certified professional. I've set up the Smith Maneuver Certified Professional Accreditation Program in order to train realtors, mortgage brokers, investment advisors, mortgage conveyancers, insurance agents, and accountants all across the country. So Canadians, regardless where they are, can find someone either coming to me or just asking around, and we can put them in front of professionals who understand the strategy, have gone through a program, and can help them implement the strategy. There are a lot of people out there who don't fully understand it, financial professionals included. Sometimes I think especially financial professionals. So if there's ever any interest with any of you folks in looking into this, you can reach out to us and we can put you in touch with someone who's gone through a course. So
before you get started, Robinson, would you like people to ask questions in between you and Megan at the very end or during?
I think at the very end.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks. Now, I know this group, you folks are all very interested in real estate investing. We're going to slide back to real estate investment towards the end of this presentation, and Megan will be bringing in where investment real estate is relevant here. But I want you to forget about real estate investment for a while, because if you're interested in investing in real estate, or if you do have some real estate investments, chances are very good you own your own home, and chances are very good on that home you have a mortgage. And that is what we're going to talk about. This is what the Smith Maneuver addresses: the mortgage on the house in which you live. So your mortgage, that very thing that you took on, which allowed you to acquire your home, this place where you're able to raise your family in peace and serenity, is also the very thing that threatens your peace and serenity, because it is so bloody expensive. I mean, even though rates are very low these days, it takes a big chunk out of your mortgage, out of your monthly paycheck. So mortgages are very expensive. Let's look at what a mortgage really costs you. And this is the math that very few people really actually do, because probably they don't want to do this math. If you've got a $400,000 mortgage, if the rate's 4.5%, it's 25-year amortization. If you're at the 38% marginal tax rate, how much does this mortgage really cost you? Well, firstly, we know it's going to cost you $400 grand. You got to pay that back. Secondly, it's not free money. You've got to pay the interest on that $400,000 of borrowing. And lastly, we make our mortgage payments with after-tax dollars. So how much do we have to earn in order to pay out this $400,000 mortgage? Over $1 million. So mortgages are hugely expensive. And we Canadians, I think we will all agree, do not have it easy. And it's not going to get any easier anytime soon. We've got high taxes. You know, we're consistently within the top 5 or 6 highest tax-paying citizenry on the planet. We pay more in tax than we do in food, clothing, and shelter combined. These are the simple, basic necessities for simple survival. So if we recall Maslow's hierarchy of needs, more goes to taxes than food, clothing, and shelter combined. We've got inadequate pensions. Some of you may have a corporate pension plan or a government pension plan, and they may seem quite generous. We can't forget that pension plans are always changing. You know, the government can do what they want with pension plans. We see a lot of defined benefit pension plans being switched to defined contribution to the benefit of the corporation, not to the employee. And those without pension plans with the corporation or government, it's too tough to save any decent amount of money for your typical Canadian to have adequate savings for retirement. And that's largely due to the mortgage expense. It's very expensive to own a house. We've also got kids, we've got braces, summer camp, tuition, we've got inflation we have to deal with. So it's not easy, as we all know in Canada. And it goes on and on, a lot of different challenges. So we need to take action. We have to pull our head out of the sand, take a look around, do some research, figure out how can we improve our financial situation so that we are going to have a comfortable retirement, comfortable golden years. We need to take action. And we Canadians generally have two very pressing financial goals, and I think you'll resonate. One, we want this expensive mortgage gone. We've got this big debt. We don't want it anymore. We want it gone, rightfully so. Secondly, we want to prepare for retirement because we don't plan on working our entire lives. We'd like to slow down, at least play some golf, do some gardening. But the decision of which of these goals to attack first, do we pay the mortgage down or do we prepare for retirement by saving? This decision is made for us, not by us, because if we don't contribute to our retirement savings, no one's going to come after us. But if we don't make a mortgage payment, someone will come after us. So the sequential approach is what most Canadians take to these two goals. We concentrate on getting rid of this mortgage at the expense of investing. We're not investing for our future because we're concentrating on paying down that mortgage. And we're missing out on years and decades of compound growth potential. It's hugely expensive. So where does that lead? You know, people who, you guys, chances are every one of you knows at least one person who's elderly, maybe retired, they're living in a $700,000, $800,000 house, clear title, and they're living on a small fixed income, CPP, OAS, right? They didn't put their equity to use. They paid off their mortgage, and by the time they were able to save for retirement, because they no longer had a mortgage payment, it's too late. They're no longer saving for retirement, they're paying for it. What's another potential destiny? We're financially reliant on our children. Maybe we're forced to downsize, whether we want to or not. Maybe we're forced to sign up for a reverse mortgage. So after 40 years of working for the bank in order to buy that house off the bank, pay your mortgage out, you hit 65 years old, you've just made your last mortgage payment, fantastic, mortgage free. You do the math, oh man, we don't have enough cash flow for retirement. Well, hey, we can sign up for a reverse mortgage and start selling the house back to the bank. Right? How does that sound? Doesn't sound too good. We're glad this option is there for unemployed seniors. Who else is going to lend them money? But we don't want to start selling the house back to the bank. We want to leave the house for the kids. Or what's another potential destiny? We see these people, these retired people, seniors. You walk into a Walmart, Costco, McDonald's, Burger King, and take a look around, and you'll see quite a few seniors working there because they have to be working, not because they want to. They've taken the sequential approach to structuring their financial affairs, concentrated on paying out the mortgage, saying, we'll save for retirement later when we can afford to. So this is a common result. Nobody has our backs, except for Randy and Steve, of course. But no one else is out there trying to take care of us. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to take action. How can we do that? We can reduce our tax bill. It's an extremely effective way of generating wealth. We can eliminate costly expenses as fast as we can, especially the mortgage. And we need to invest for our future as early and as often as possible. Earlier is better. Now, why is having debt so important? This is not something that, when I'm speaking to real estate investment groups, this isn't something I focus on. It's generally a well-educated audience. They understand that if I borrow to invest with the reasonable expectation of generating income, there it is, Randy, it doesn't have to generate income. It has to have a reasonable expectation of generating income. So you can invest in a wide array of different types of investments. But in anyways, if we borrow with a reasonable expectation of generating income, we can deduct the interest from our income. Tax deductible debt creates wealth. We're necessarily, in order to be able to generate those deductions, buying an asset which is going to increase in value. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, like invest in my business, your business, investment real estate, mix, private lending, a whole bunch of different things. But these assets tend to increase in value over time. Non-deductible debt destroys wealth. Why? Because I go and I borrow from my house or a personal line of credit and I go buy a $30,000 car. We all know what happens as soon as I drive that off the lot. And the value of that vehicle continues to decline over time. I borrow to go on vacation. I borrow to buy groceries. When we borrow to consume, we cannot deduct the interest and the value of that asset declines. And there's many people out there who define wealth as whether or not they have debt. I have no mortgage. I have no personal line of credit debt, no credit card. I'm doing pretty good. I'm wealthy. And I'm going to stay that way. I'm going to die that way. Well, when Grim Reaper comes knocking on the door, this person has a $700,000 house with zero liabilities, meaning here zero mortgage. They have zero assets, investment assets, because they've been concentrating on paying down that mortgage. They got a net worth of $700,000. Someone who has that same house, if they borrow a total of $300,000 over time in order to invest, where that portfolio is valued at $740,000, they've got a $1.14 million net worth. So net worth should be our measure of wealth, not the amount of debt. So use your equity. Not just your home, but especially your home, but all your assets, your investment assets. Unproductive equity equals negative return. I mentioned someone's $700,000 house, $700,000 of equity in this house, earning them 0%. It's actually less than that because they're dealing with inflation as well. So unproductive equity equals negative return. And you folks understand this very clearly. You're used to borrowing to invest in real estate. So you understand this. But what you may not have realized is that your mortgage, the mortgage on the house in which you live, can be one of your biggest investment opportunities. Cycle of benefits with the Smith Maneuver. The Smith Maneuver converts your 100% non-deductible mortgage to a 100% tax-deductible investment loan. When I borrow, when I get a mortgage, when I borrow to buy my house in which I live, I don't have a reasonable expectation of generating income, so I cannot deduct the interest on that mortgage. That's why mortgages are so expensive. So it's 100% non-tax deductible, but the Smith Maneuver will convert that to tax deductible. So each month with this strategy, which Megan will go into in a little more detail, each month you generate valuable and increasing tax deductions right from the very beginning. You're generating tax refunds due to these tax deductions, and therefore you get money back from the government at tax time, and you take this refund, which otherwise you wouldn't have received, and you say, I'm going to make a prepayment against my mortgage with this newfound money. And because you're doing this at least on an annual basis, you're able to get rid of your mortgage much faster than what it says on that mortgage loan document, 25 years, for example. And each month you have money that you can invest, which otherwise you would not have available. So it's newfound money. It all happens now. It happens simultaneously, and it does not require any cash from you on a monthly basis. This is simply restructuring your personal finances, what you already have going on. The assets, the liabilities, the flows of cash. No new extra cash is required from you. We're just going to put it to work a little bit differently to generate tax deductions, to get rid of your non-deductible mortgage faster, and to build up an investment portfolio which otherwise you wouldn't have available to you. So now we're going to get to the fun stuff. And I am going to stop sharing. And Megan can take it away.
All right, I'm just going to set up my screen share. Okay, are we all set up? Everyone can see that?
Looks good.
Good.
Awesome. So now we're going to go get into the nitty gritty of how that Smith Maneuver works. And the brilliance behind it is the fact that it really starts by just having our mortgage and having to make that regular monthly mortgage payment as you would do anyways. But the mortgage payment is going to be reducing that overall monthly balance. So the particular mortgage that we would have already arranged to work with the Smith Maneuver, that allows us to reborrow the equity that we create each month. So we then take that equity that appears on the re-advanced line of credit and systematically use these funds to invest. So since we're investing these funds, as we've kind of gone over already, with the intention of earning an income, whether it's ETFs, whether it's mutual funds, real estate, interest on these borrowed funds becomes a tax deduction, and that's where we're getting that tax relief to assist in building our investment portfolio. So we continue making our mortgage payments each and every month And what this does for us is creates that larger overall tax deduction when it comes to income tax time. With that, you are entitled to an annual tax refund, which you're getting back money back from the government, which you can then apply as a prepayment, which again, systematically will increase the amount of equity that appears on that line of credit for you to be able to then borrow and reinvest from there. So again, that's how we are able to decrease the overall amortization and build our investment portfolio while still just making our regular mortgage payments. So for the people that are more visual learners, this is kind of how it looks. So the typical Canadian, they scrape together enough money for their down payment and they go and get a $400,000 mortgage, is what we're going to use for in this example. And they promise to pay back that mortgage for the next 25 years. So essentially a life sentence. And this $400,000 is not tax deductible. So it's extremely expensive. So on that $400,000 mortgage, amortized over 25 years at a 3% interest rate, a person will pay $168,000 in interest over the life of that mortgage. Now, we're not adding in the actual income you'd have to earn to get to that money. That is just how much after-tax dollars you are additionally going to have to pay. So I don't know about you, but if I can save any money that I have to pay to the government and it's legal, I want to do it. So I haven't met any people that disagree with me on that front. So in order to make the Smith maneuver work, we need that readvanceable mortgage that has been already mentioned here. So it has the same amortizing loan attached to it as our regular mortgage, but this one also has a line of credit attached to it. And it's the nature of that readvancing product that allows us with each mortgage payment, the principal amount to be readvanced to that line of credit systematically, which we can then borrow to invest. Now, Rob touched on it, and same with Randy. It's really important that we're not using this money that is the equity that is going on to that line of credit to consume. We don't want to go buy that new car or that TV that you've had your eye on, because if you borrow to consume, you're not improving. There's no tax deductibility. You're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot because you're stealing from any equity in your mortgage as well. So that we have to be borrowing with the reasonable expectation of generating an income in order to be able to deduct that. So this is how the Smith maneuver looks when we're looking at actual numbers. So you have that $400,000 amortizing loan, which is the mortgage, of which the mortgage payment, the $2,200 for that first payment, $730 of that is going to go directly to the principal. This creates that amount of equity that is then readvanced to that line of credit, which then becomes available to reborrow and invest. So essentially, we just continue to do this month after month until we get to a point that we end up with that $400,000 investment loan, which is completely tax deductible and is going to provide us with large tax refunds on an annual basis from the government, which again is money you wouldn't have received otherwise. You're going to be paying way less in that non-deductible debt overall. So these annual tax refunds that you're going to get over the course of that 25 years, you're able to pay down that mortgage a lot faster. And being able to do that creates just creates a space that we are able to invest more money again, so growing our net worth. And I'm sure most people have heard that investing today is always going to be better than investing tomorrow because of compound growth. So with each month that you're making that mortgage payment and then systematically using the principal pay down to invest, you're taking advantage of that compound growth, because starting right from day one, you are able to invest those funds and start seeing the growth accumulate over the entire period of that amortization. So for the typical Canadian homeowner, the plain Jane Smith Maneuver strategy ends up being worth around $400,000. Now, this is going to vary depending on the amount of the mortgage, the rate, things like that. But it's still a substantial amount that I would take $400,000 if someone offered that to me just to stay in my current situation. So there's also a number of accelerators that both shorten the time that it takes to pay down that non-deductible mortgage. They save you thousands on interest, and they propel that investment portfolio to levels that essentially you wouldn't have been able to obtain otherwise. So we're going to go over a few of those different accelerators. The accelerators, there's 5 of them. They include the debt swap, cash flow diversion, the drip accelerator, prime the pump, and the cash flow down. And we're going to start with the debt swap. So what the debt swap is essentially if an individual had some money sitting in, say, a non-registered account that was invested in ETFs, for example, you may elect to redeem them from that account, take that $10,000 and make a cash prepayment against that mortgage. Now, you want to look into the taxation of this. There are certain superficial tax loss rules that you need to be aware of, but again, that's why you be working with a professional when you're working on implementing this strategy. But since you have now applied this $10,000 directly to that non-deductible mortgage loan, it is going to be re-advanced to that line of credit, which can then be re-borrowed and reinvested. So this not only decreases the amount of deductible debt that there is, but it still leaves you with that same $10,000 of investments. So it's very powerful. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, essentially. Now the cash flow diversion. I feel like this is one of the simplest accelerators that people can implement with the Smith Maneuver. So what a lot of people do, a lot of my clients that I see, they get their paycheck, or on a monthly basis, they set it up so that a certain amount of money gets automatically invested. So this person they're doing really great things. They're being proactive in their investing for their future, but there is a more efficient way that they could be doing the exact same thing if they have the Smith Maneuver system already set up. So that essentially becomes the cash flow diversion. So instead of taking that $300 from when they get paid that once or twice a month and investing that money, you are going to take that money and apply it as a prepayment to that mortgage. So once again, this amount is being applied directly to the principal amount, which increases that equity that's available on that line of credit, which can be then borrowed and have it systematically invested. So again, like 2 birds, 1 stone. You are using that same money to pay down that non-deductible mortgage loan, but you're also using that money to get invested at the same time. Now, the DRIP, if people aren't familiar with what DRIP stands for, it's Dividend Reinvestment Program. So when a person has like things like mutual funds, ETFs, stocks, it's very common for these types of investments to pay dividends either like on a quarterly basis or maybe annually. And for the most part, I see people elect to have these funds automatically reinvested to purchase more of whatever investment it's currently paying. Now, there's, again, a way that we can incorporate this into the Smith Maneuver to assist in paying down that non-deductible mortgage loan quicker. So instead of electing to have those dividends automatically reinvested, we request that they get paid out in cash. So they're paid out in cash for like a hot minute, and then we use that money to apply as a prepayment, which then, again, we re-borrow and go back and purchase that can be those same investments. But again, we're getting it paid, that non-deductible mortgage paid down quicker, borrowing that money from the line of credit, and getting that money back reinvested. So prime the pump. Now this is where I feel like a lot of real estate investors see a lot of the value because of this accelerating, being able to facilitate a lot of the real estate acquisition they may want to look at. So if you have the wrong type of mortgage and you want to implement the Smith maneuver, you are in a position that you have to go and look at refinancing to get the readvanceable type of mortgage that you need. Or if it's just timing happens to be right and it's time for you to refinance, when you go to do so, if you're considering wanting to implement the Smith maneuver, you would elect to go have that readvancing mortgage. So let's say the home value that you have is $500,000 and you currently owe $400,000 on that existing mortgage. So you need $400,000 to be paid out. So when you get this new mortgage, the max the lender is going to be willing to give to you is 80% of that loan to value. So that would be the $400,000 in this case, because you would need to have $100,000 worth of equity still to remain in that property. So the new lender is going to give you that $400,000, of which every single cent is going to be needed to pay out that the mortgage that we had that didn't work for the Smith maneuver. So that essentially is going to leave our line of credit at $0. But as soon as we begin making our mortgage payments, that's when we're going to start seeing some of that equity growth there. Now let's take into consideration if our home value is actually worth $600,000. So you still need that same $400,000 to pay out that mortgage that does not work for the Smith maneuver. But instead of your home being worth $500,000, it's worth $600,000. So if the lender will give you 80% loan to value, they would be willing to give you $480,000. So if I only need that $400,000 to pay out that mortgage loan, that essentially means that you're going to have $80,000 allocated on to that line of credit right from day one. And you can essentially do whatever you want with that money. Now, again, we don't want to use that money to consume because it doesn't change the deductibility of that loan then. We need to be making sure that we're using it for the purposes of investing. So we could pull out that $80,000 and invest in mutual funds, or you could use it to go to use as the down payment on an investment property, depending on where you live. And this will increase the deductibility that you have at income tax time substantially. And every single year, you're going to get a larger tax refund, which you again apply as a repayment. And these have a huge impact on increasing your overall net worth. And finally, we're going to go over the cash flow dam. So this is going to be applicable to many of the people that are on the call that have the rental properties in addition to their primary residence. But it can be used for any proprietorship, such as like a home-based business or that rental property business, but it does have to be in the individual's name. So what most people think the correct way to deal with their rental income is to put that money away into an account and have that account service any of the rental expenses that come up, like the monthly mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance. So essentially money in, money out. So you're missing out on a really valuable opportunity here if you have it set up, if you do have your primary residence set up with that readvancing mortgage. So what it looks like if we implement the cash flow dam with that rental property is we still get that same $2,000 of rental income each month, but instead of taking that money and just putting it into a bank account, we initially apply it as a prepayment to our primary residence. We are then able to re-borrow that same $2,000 from the line of credit and put it back into that rental property account and use those funds to service the expenses such as I already mentioned, the utilities, the mortgage, the insurance, anything along those lines. The benefit here is if you are prepaying your mortgage by $2,000 a month, we are seeing that non-deductible mortgage loan decrease in record time. Like I'm talking about single digit amortization, which is not really something most people think that even is obtainable. So it really opens up our ability to increase our overall net worth. So this one is very, very, very powerful. Now, Robinson already touched on the fact that no new cash is required to implement the Smith Maneuver. And I've had a lot of people ask me, okay, well, you implement the Smith Maneuver, where is the money coming from to pay for that, to pay the interest on that line of credit that we are borrowing money from? And the answer is relatively simple if you look at the mechanics of how a mortgage is set up. So with every mortgage payment that a person makes, a bit more of that payment goes towards the principal and a little bit less goes towards the interest. So the very first month that you make that mortgage payment, the principal amount that, or the amount that goes towards the principal is approximately $728. You're then able to borrow that amount and reinvest it. The next month, that same mortgage, you still have that exact same mortgage payment, but the rate is being calculated on a slightly lower outstanding mortgage balance. So a little bit more of that payment goes towards principal and a little bit less towards the interest. So if I re-borrowed that full $730, we would then realize that, oh, it costs about approximately $2 to service the amount of interest that is on that line of credit. So if we deducted that, again, we are investing $728 and leaving that $2 in that account to service that interest. The next month, even less of that payment is going to go towards the interest and more towards the principal. So we are going to have the same $728 to invest because this month we need $5 to service the last 2 months borrowing. So it is the efficiency of the mortgage payment is what makes it so that we are not required to have to dig into our pockets to service that interest. So it takes care of itself and you're able to accumulate your wealth by doing exactly what you were doing to begin with. So to just summarize the benefits of the Smith Maneuver, so each month you're able to invest money that you essentially wouldn't have had otherwise. I have so many clients come to me and say, well, the cost of living and the cost of my mortgage payment really make it so that I don't have additional funds to be able to save or invest. This system gives you the best of both worlds. You're able to pay down your mortgage while building an investment portfolio that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. Each month, you're generating valuable, increasing tax deductions. And with those, each year, you're going to get that tax refund from the government, which again, you can apply as a prepayment to the mortgage. So you're really able to eliminate that expensive mortgage debt in record time. And one of the amazing things is this, you can start these benefits start right away. So the second you have the readvance mortgage or mortgage set up, you make that first mortgage payment, you are paying down that very expensive non-deductible mortgage loan, and you are able to begin accumulating an investment portfolio that will far exceed anything you would have been able to do if you were just trying to find additional funds in your budget to get invested. So again, that's why no new cash is required. So now what we're going to actually look at is we're going to go through the amazing Smithman calculator that has been set up by Robinson and his team. And it's going to go through just a real life example of implementing some of these things so you can kind of see the impact of it. So I'm just going to figure out here how I switch which screen I'm sharing. I'm gonna go like this, and then there we go. Can we see the calculator now?
We can.
We can, perfect. Okay. So we're gonna go through the calculator, trying to use like pretty average things that I would come across with my clients. So we're going to look at like annual household employment income, about $120,000. We're going to say that these people do have a rental property. They're getting $36,000 in rental income. Their rental expenses are $32,000. Net income for the household is $124,000. These individuals, they have some mutual funds, $10,000 in non-registered account, and then they have some ETFs being invested as well in a non-reg. And being the conservative and smart individuals that they are, they have an emergency fund of $10,000. So they have their primary residence and that and their rental property as well. So based off of the household income, their marginal tax rate is approximately 38%. So that's where we're going to be using that. Now going into the mortgage and line of credit components. So their primary residence we're going to use has a value of $750,000. Depending on where you live, that could be astronomical, or it could be definitely not enough. If you live in Victoria, the mortgage balance, they owe $500,000. So I'm going to use a little bit more conservative interest rates. I know rates are lower than 3% right now, but we're going to say 3%, just to show you that how even at a little bit higher interest rates, 3, 4, 5%, this still works. So the total amortization length we're going to look at is the 25 years. So the monthly mortgage payment that they're making is $23.66. I hope this doesn't shock a lot of you. Now looking at that re-advancing line of credit. So line of credits are usually prime plus something. So the bank of credit prime right now is 2.45. So for this example, I've done prime plus 1. A lot of individuals on secured lines of credit can get prime plus a half, but we're going to use prime plus 1 here. So the borrowing rate for the line of credit is 3.45%. All right, so now let's see some of the fun stuff. So we're going to assume an investment portfolio growth rate. So we're going to assume that these people are investing in ETFs or mutual funds, and on average, they are earning 6%. And that is not, I think that that's a pretty conservative number for on average. I have clients, most people in mutual funds or ETFs are right now are experiencing definitely higher returns than that, but we're going to be a little bit conservative. Now with that mortgage, the $2,366 that we already seen, $1,124 of it would go directly to principal in that first month that they make that payment. So here we are going to set it. This is where you're going to start seeing on the right hand side of the screen the taxation improvement, amortization improvement, and the net worth improvement. This is where you're going to start seeing some of these things move. So if we reborrow that $1,124 from that line of credit and invest it at that 6%, you're automatically right here over the amortization period, you're going to see that taxation improvement and the net worth improvement. A next big thing for the plain Jane Smith maneuver, do you wish to apply your estimated tax refunds to your Smith maneuver? So as I said, because you are borrowing to invest, you have the tax deductibility at tax time each year. So with those funds, you are going to take that tax refund that you receive and apply it as a prepayment to your mortgage annually, which, as you'll decreases the amortization of that mortgage. So just with this plain Jane Smith maneuver, no accelerators or anything, just by taking the principal equity that we have that is re-advanced to that line of credit and investing it, you have substantial taxation improvement. You save 2 years on the overall amortization period, and you have a net worth improvement of $250,000. just by doing exactly what you're doing, paying your monthly mortgage, essentially. So I know if that doesn't sound like enough money, I would take $250,000 and run with it. So if someone doesn't like that money, they're more than welcome to send it my way. But really, you haven't done anything outside of what you are doing on probably a regular basis right now. So now let's look at how implementing some of those accelerators just blows all of this essentially out of the water. So in terms of the debt swap, as I had mentioned, this individual has $10,000 in mutual funds in a non-registered account, and then they have $10,000 in ETFs in a non-registered account. So let's say that they took that $20,000, applied it as a prepayment to their mortgage, and then reborrowed those funds to, again, invest. Again, you're going to see a substantial improvement in the overall amortization period and net worth. These people, being really, really smart, have a backup fund. They have some emergency cash, probably very useful during COVID time. But they want to use some of this money. So if they were to take, say, for example, half of these funds, and again, apply it as a prepayment to that mortgage, take it back out, invest it. Again, huge improvement in the amortization and net worth. Now, the cash flow diversion. So these people are those proactive individuals that are, when they get their paycheck each month, they are trying to put some money away to invest. So that $300 that they currently invest each month, instead of doing that, they are going to apply it as a prepayment to their mortgage and then get it invested. Because they are doing that, did you all just see that huge jump in amortization improvement? So now they've shaved close to 7 years off of that 25-year amortization. So let's get to that cash flow down accelerator. So this is for those of you that have in a rental property. So these individuals, again, also have a rental property. They're getting $3,000 a month in rental receipts, and they have about just under $2,700 a month in rental expenses. So again, this is going to show you how much of an increase using the cash flow down can make to paying down that non-deductible mortgage loan. It's huge. If your eyes didn't just go like bug-eyed, I can't see all of you, I would be shocked, because every time I do that, I get so excited. So you've now reduced your amortization by 17 years from that 25-year amortization that you started out with. So you've reduced it to about just over 8 years, just by maneuvering where you're placing your money and in what order, essentially. So we're not going to look at the dividend reinvestment plan, but we are going to look at the prime the pump accelerator. So for these individuals, I had mentioned that they have a $750,000 home value, but their mortgage is $500,000. So again, at that 80% loan to value rate, the lender would be willing to advance them. It should be 100,000, so I have to go back with my numbers, but would be willing to re-advance them that amount onto that line of credit right from day one. So this money could be used essentially to go use as a down payment to purchase another property, or if they were just, like, in the simplest terms for this example, using that money to invest in the markets. The net worth improvement is substantial, because what you are doing is, again, you're taking advantage of compound growth. So the money you are investing today, it now has 25 years to grow. So that's why you're seeing such a huge net worth improvement. So you have now paid down your mortgage in your non-deductible mortgage debt in less than 10 years. So single digits, 8 years. And at the end of that 25-year period, you're going to have a net worth improvement. So this is over and above your property already being paid off. Net worth improvement of $1.1 million that you wouldn't have had that you wouldn't necessarily had otherwise. So this can give you that financial freedom, essentially, that most people are working their butts off to get to. And I think that that's really applicable to the group that are likely here tonight, because obviously everyone has an interest in investing in real estate, and we're doing that likely for whatever our why is, to improve our finances, the quality of life. And I think that the having that net worth down the road, again, we reiterate how valuable concentrating on that net worth is, as opposed to what kind of debt we have. So I'm just going to show you this on a graph form. So you'll see here this yellow line. I'm going to go up here a bit so you can still see that. The yellow line is like our total debt level. So year 8, just between year 7 and 8, the amortization, like that non-deductible mortgage debt, 0. The deductible investment loan that we have is completely maxed out. So it's showing 566,000. Our investment portfolio at this point would be worth just under 400,000. But if you look a little bit longer down the road, at about year 11, the investment portfolio is worth more than that investment loan. And if you continue to apply those mortgage payments instead of to the mortgage, but into your investment account, at the end of that 25-year amortization, you have an overall portfolio of 1.7 million. You still have that investment loan, but if you reduce that, that's where the net worth improvement of 1.15 comes from. So really, really valuable strategy. So now I'm going to stop screen sharing, and Robinson and I are going to open it up for question and answers.
First off, I just want to say, whoa, that was a lot to take in. That was phenomenal. Everyone, can we give a little bit of hands for these two for what a beautiful presentation that was? That is not an easy thing to explain in the, half hour, 45 minutes you guys have done it in. So kudos to you and Robinson for putting that presentation together and being so efficient with it. I tagged down a few of the questions. Robinson was answering quite a few of them along the way. I'm going to just quickly skim through a few of them. If I don't answer your question, guys, we can make these two accessible for you. Megan's happy to answer some questions, and Robinson is always very active in our social media forums. So I'm going to quickly run through some of your questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat box and I will ask them for you. The first thing that I'm going to start with asking is, for Robinson, like, where do we find these Smith certified professionals? Because I'm sure everyone hears their brains racked, and as we get into the questions, they're going to get pretty in depth. But obviously the number one thing is you guys come on here not to just explain this in a way that you can go implement it tomorrow, right? You have to go talk to someone who's a professional and understands what they're doing. Where do we find those people?
Yeah, firstly, there's 2 of those professionals on this call. We've got Megan, and we've also got Keaton Kirkwood. I see he's joined us. So Megan's on the investment insurance side of things, and Keaton is a mortgage broker, Smith Manoeuvre certified mortgage broker. But if you're not local, if you're over in Windsor, Ontario, or whatever, and you want a mortgage broker who's close to you, whatever the case is, email us at info@smithman.net, and we will connect you with whatever you're asking for. A Smith Manoeuvre certified professional mortgage broker, realtor, investment advisor, conveyancer, insurance agent, accountant. We've got all those professionals trained up. They've gone through a course. It's not easy, right, Megan? I think you failed 6 or 7 times before you passed the test.
I would not fail a thing in my life.
No, Megan did very well, as did Keith.
I am an overachiever, let's be honest.
But we got all types of SMCPs across the country. They may not be extremely local to you, but there are people that can help in all these different categories. So info@smithman.net. Please tell me a phone number would be great, where you're located, and what type of professional you're looking for.
And you can put that in the chat, Robinson, so people can reach out to you a little bit easier instead of some people might not be listening or paying attention. So that's good. The first question that I saw come in that's kind of a layup for you guys is, for the cash flow dam, can you make a mortgage payment through the line of credit associated with the mortgage?
Well, I'm glad you asked that one. I saw that come up and I wasn't exactly clear. Whoever asked that question, would you like to come on and verbally ask it?
I believe it was Allison Renner. Oh no, it was Cindy. I don't know if Cindy's available on the call. You can unmute yourself if you are, Cindy. No, Cindy.
Okay, well, what I will do is, it sounds kind of like the question is, probably not, but can I borrow from my line of credit to make an extra payment on my mortgage? This is what sometimes people, they say, well, okay, I'm paying down my mortgage over here. I've got this increasing available credit over here. Instead of borrowing it out to invest, I'll borrow it out and I'll make an extra payment on my mortgage, get rid of it real fast. Well, then all you're doing is reborrowing non-deductible on that line of credit to pay down non-deductible, because it's the use of the borrowed funds which dictates deductibility. So if you borrow to pay down non-deductible debt, that borrowing itself is non-deductible. So when you do that reborrowing, when you're doing it on a monthly basis, whether you're doing it a big lump sum with Prime the Pump, you want to get it invested with a reasonable expectation of generating income. And if it's referring to the cash flow dam, if you're taking rental revenues, you're prepaying your mortgage, you're reborrowing, say that's $3,000, then you pull that out and then you can service the interest expense on that rental property. Not just, make the mortgage payment on that rental property. So mortgage payment, any other deductible expenses that come up because you're investing in your business. So anything you can deduct on your rental property now, you can use that cash flow dam to service.
Cool. The next one I saw come in that's pretty generic to everyone is, are each of these accelerators unique, and can you use each of them individually, or do they have to overlap? No,
they're all entirely discrete and independent. You can use one and not the other. If I refinance and I have immediately $100,000 available to me, I could borrow some, all, or none of that to prime the pump, get it invested directly. But if I don't want to do that for whatever reason, then I just leave it unborrowed. The very first month I make my mortgage payment, I'm going to have $102,000. I just pull out $2,000 and invest. Next month I'd have right? So you always just leave that $100,000 unborrowed until some great investment opportunity comes along, and then you can pull out $50,000, 2500, whatever it is. But
you don't have to use accelerators at all. You can go with just the plain Jane Smith maneuver, and you're still see, because of those annual tax refunds, if you're applying them as a prepayment, you're still seeing that amortization decrease slightly by like a couple of years, and you're still seeing an overall net worth improvement by just implementing that Smith maneuver.
On that thing here, I saw a question that comes in. Is, can I apply the cash flow dam on a legal basement apartment in my principal residence?
You're going to hopefully already be deducting a portion of your mortgage, because you're generating income from that whatever percentage of square footage that you have a renter in. But yes, if you're getting, say, $1,000 a month from the person who lives in your basement suite, you're typically taking that $1,000 a month, and either you're buying groceries or putting it into a savings account or using it to help with your own mortgage payment or putting in a vacation fund or whatever. But you can certainly take that $1,000 and make a prepayment against your mortgage, borrow back that $1,000 and get it invested. It's just using a Smith Maneuver certified professional accountant will be able to calculate how much of that existing non-deductible debt, mortgage debt, is actually deductible, a small percentage based on square footage, but also what is the effect of that rental revenues going against your mortgage and being reborrowed to invest each month.
God, you guys are smart.
I'm faking it all. It's all faked.
Would this Smith Mover be applicable if my rental property is under a corporation?
Then there are ways that you can use a rental property which is investment property that is incorporated, but that is beyond tonight. There's the reason it works with a proprietorship is because with a proprietorship, I own my rental property. It's in my name. It's not incorporated. The money coming in and out of that is my money, my personal money. It's just me. So what I do with the rental receipts, how I service the expenses on that rental property, it's all relatively simple. But when we're dealing with, I have a corporation which owns my rental properties. Now I'm dealing with two different legal entities. I've got myself and I've got the corporation, which is as separate and distinct from me as my buddy Bill or friend Sharon is. In the eyes of the law, they're two separate identities. And so therefore, pulling money out of that corporation, there's taxation implications and all that sort of fun stuff. So again, this is where you use an SMCP accountant to help you with it.
Amazing. One of the questions, I had 3 or 4 questions come in about people that have their principal mortgage already paid off. So I was just curious if you could take 2 minutes and just recap again. If you don't have a mortgage right now, you own your home outright, how can you start implementing the Smith maneuver to start making that work?
Well, if you own your house outright, you've just wasted an hour and a half of your life here, because this is a mortgage conversion strategy. When I have a mortgage on my principal residence, I have the debt. I don't want non-deductible debt. I want deductible debt and all the good things that we've seen that comes with it. If I have a clear title house, then I've got an $800,000 house. I've got all this equity, again, earning me 0%. You saw me get passionate earlier.
Negative.
But negative return. Thank you. But what I can do there is go refinance it, somehow get a HELOC on it. I don't have any debt to convert, but I can refinance so that I can pull some equity out and invest. That is simply leveraged investing. And people do that all the time. Even when they have a mortgage on their principal residence, they'll go to a bank and they'll slap a HELOC in second position, and it's $100K, and they can pull out $100K. Fantastic. So they pull out $100K, they go invest it somewhere. They've added to their total debt, albeit deductible debt, but they've increased risk because they've added to their debt on top of that mortgage. The Smith maneuver doesn't add any debt. It just converts the nature of the debt. So yes, while you're doing that, and real estate investors do this all the time, they'll refi their house, or they'll simply slap a HELOC in second position, but it doesn't re-advance. So they can pull it out and invest, but they have no ability to convert the remainder of their non-deductible debt because the limit on that HELOC, if it's not a re-advanceable, doesn't increase in real time. So it can't be reaccessed.
I'm sure if they talk to a mortgage specialist, they could look at what their options were about those type of options on putting a mortgage versus a HELOC and different options on their properties. So it's not that it doesn't apply. It's just you can do different strategies that make it work by putting a mortgage on your property and then doing it that way again.
That's right. And even if you're clear title and you slap a HELOC on it, it's not a re-advanceable because you've got no debt you need to convert. You might as well. Well, I guess what I wanted to say is I'm clear title on my house. The Smith maneuver doesn't apply to me. Well, if you take a look at your balance sheet and you notice that, oh, okay, well, I do have $50,000 balance on my personal line of credit. It's all non-deductible. I got 10 grand on credit cards. I also got a car loan that cost me 7%. You have the opportunity to consolidate all that by talking to a mortgage broker like Keaton here and saying, you know what, slap a mortgage on my house, make it a re-advanceable, and all this consumer debt, no longer am I paying the high rate. It's now low rate secured by the house, but you get to convert that. And you're turning all that existing consumer debt, which is weighing you down, into much less monthly payments. Plus, you're turning it all into investments by converting it.
Incredible. One here is kind of for more for Megan, but what passive real estate investments work with the Smith maneuver versus mutual fund type things? So if they want to make monthly payments for yearly investments type thing, does that kind of make sense for you? Like if somebody wanted to invest in real estate while using the Smith maneuver?
Well, you can depending on the amount of space that you have available on that line of credit, you can use those funds like essentially to use as a down payment for a property. I see a lot of people doing that. That's I guess considered a passive investment. Well, I don't know exactly what they're considering passive. So ETFs, is that kind of what they're thinking?
Could they use it as a joint venture partner, partnering on a property and then take the cash flow coming in?
As long as it has that reasonable expectation that you're going to be earning an income, you can use that money. But the only thing is with real estate is that you do have to either have that lump sum available right off the hop, or you have to wait to accumulate it. And waiting, again, you're missing out on that compound growth by waiting to accumulate, say, $100,000 or whatever it is that you need for the down payment. So you just have to weigh your options there.
Yeah, this is, people who want to get into investment real estate, they refinance, they only have $6,000 maybe because of the way the numbers work out. They can pull that out to invest right away. But now they have to work at this monthly conversion process. They don't have anything just because of values to take out and go invest in real estate in any meaningful form. Well, typically what people will do is they'll wait years by making the mortgage payment. And then once they see they have the equity, then they'll go and slap a HELOC in, pull a big chunk out and invest. What that does is foregoes the power of compound growth, because in the meantime, today, starting now, you can invest $1,000, $1,200, $2,000 a month and build that up, access it in real time until it's that amount that you want to, now you've been buying ETFs or mutual funds. Now you sell them once you got a suitable amount and go invest in the real estate.
Cool. And then just to add one more on to this, Megan, was, is there any REITs or anything like that where you can contribute on a monthly basis for an investment that you work with specifically? Like,
not that I work with specifically, but there's a lot of mix around. I'm personally mutual fund licensed, so those are exempt markets, so that's a little bit different. I do have funds obviously that do include REITs and things like that, so you can look at options like that, mix, so the mortgage investment corporations, things like that. I don't know that mix would actually they might do like a monthly contribution, but it might need to have like a $25,000 minimum or something like that. So.
And I'll also add, thanks, Megan. I'll also add the type of income you receive from your investments. You don't have to receive income from your investments. There just has to be a reasonable expectation of generating income. So even if I buy a mutual fund which doesn't declare it's going to send out dividends, if it doesn't explicitly state we're never going to send out dividends, then there's a possibility they may, and sometimes they do, extraordinary dividends. But if you're investing in a product like some REITs, for example, where the distributions are partially return of capital, then you're getting into some complicated accounting here, because that's your own money coming back to you rather than generating income. So now your adjusted cost base of the investment is decreasing, but also the deductibility on that, what's supposed to be 100% tax deductible, the deductibility is declining because your adjusted cost base is declining. So again, talking to a Smith Manoeuvre certified professional investment advisor and an accountant is not to say you can't do it, but they'll be able to track this. They'll know how to track this if you are investing in those types of funds.
Quite a few questions came in around interest rates. If the interest rate is so low on principal properties, does this still make sense to do that versus doing different styles? Like, let me ask that again. How does the lower interest rates, if you're getting interest at 1.8, 1.9%, what impact does that have on the Smith Maneuver?
Well, we saw Megan's demonstration there. The non-deductible rate was 3%, and the borrowing rate on that line of credit was 3.45. Now, we can run tests. I've run it so that the mortgage percentage is 10%, and the line of credit borrowing rate is 10%, and we're still ahead. And there's a couple of reasons for this. The higher the mortgage rate, the more I have to reborrow to invest on an accelerating basis. So I'm getting more invested sooner. And also on the reborrowing side, the higher the rate there, the bigger my tax deductions and therefore refunds are. So I'm prepaying by more each and every month. So there's a whole bunch of different factors which play into this. But when we're looking at the rate on the non-deductible amortizing loan versus the rate on that line of credit, when we punch those numbers into the Smith-Man calculator, as we saw, there was a negative spread, what appeared to be a negative spread. It still comes out in our favor and the calculator takes this into consideration. The math it's doing on an ongoing basis, monthly over the course of the next 25 years in its little computer brain, is taking into account the fact that you're paying down debt which may be slightly cheaper than that of which you're reborrowing. Plus, don't forget that 3.45% on that line of credit, because the interest is tax deductible. If you're at the 50% marginal tax rate, the real rate of borrowing is not 3.45, it's like 1.72. So that's not a high hurdle to beat.
Totally. That's That's amazing. And I want to respect your guys' time. We could sit here and answer all the questions all night. I do want to acknowledge our 2LU asked a lot of very mathematical type questions. I would recommend just reaching out to either Robinson or one of his professionals.
No, ask Megan. Don't bother me.
Yeah. Reaching out to them to do that. And just some of those more personal questions. I saw your questions. I just tried to keep them generic for everybody that was on the call. So with that, I just want to thank both of you so much for coming on. We'll get your information out to everyone that wants this. Everyone that registered, we'll send out the recording for so that they can see it. If you guys just want to put your contact information in the chat again for everyone, so if they want to reach out to you, they can reach out to you directly. That would be the best thing right now, so that everyone can put that in. And for the 10 people that asked, yes, this is recorded and will be sent out to you after the presentation is done and loaded up. So expect it sometime tomorrow. Would be great.
Randy, can you put my information in there? Because for some reason I can only send messages privately to Keaton. And I don't know how to change that.
There's a little thing above it where it
Sorry,
says,
Keaton, you're probably getting little blurbs.
I would just like to say, Randy and Steve, thank you so much for having us on today. I very much enjoy presenting. This is what I love to do. It's why I sold my business, so I could reach out to more Canadians. And good on you with what you're doing for kids sport. I know my wife Heidi, who's watching tonight, along with my sister, put out a plug for your kids sport donation.
Cool.
I don't think she sent you any money, but she shared it.
That's awesome.
Megan, you did a fantastic job. This is the first presentation in joint I've done with Megan, and I'm not going to let you do any more, because otherwise I'm going to be out of work pretty damn quick.
You guys knocked it out of the park tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. It was great to be here.
Just before everyone wants to jump off, our next meetup will be November 17th. As always, this is the third Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. So I'll get an email out to all of you. If you like this, hop into our REINVESTORS community. Robinson and Megan hang out there quite frequently, answering questions, supporting people, and doing what they need to do to support our community, as well as all of our other sponsors. So just search it up, the REINVESTORS community, hop in there, and it's a easy one to follow, and you can ask a lot of these questions in there. And if you enjoyed it, go plug us out on all of our social medias. We love doing this, and it really excites us to do it more when we read these messages at the end of every meetup. Seeing what comes in, it just really inspires us to do more. So thank you guys again. It's been so great presenting. Steve and I love it every single month. If you have any questions, reach out to us, and we're happy to support anybody and anything they need. With that,
and I guess we should say Smithman, www.smithman.net. I don't know if I've mentioned that.
Yep. Awesome. I'll make sure all that gets put out in an email to every one of you that's on here. So with that, I'll stop the recording and say thank you all so much, and give Robinson and Megan a little bit of love with some hands here. Let me do that. There we go.
Fingers.
Everyone can see there. So
Connie and Glenn Mullen, glad you joined us if you're still on.
Mom and Dad were present the whole time. So that was amazing. So awesome. Thanks everyone. And
thanks everyone. Have a great night.